Okay, so let me start off with a few questions about first of all, today is Wednesday, June the 9th, 2021. It's a little after 3 p.m. Pacific time. And Wendy and I are talking about DWeb Camp, and I've got some ideas to basically propose or to consider. And, I'm not attached to any of these ideas. This is just like a contribution to the community, basically. So what is the status of DWeb Camp currently?
Well, we're definitely planning for one in 2022. And Brewster would like me to see if it would be possible in 2021. I reached out to Matt Siegel, and things are kind of changing week by week, month to month. He said that in San Mateo County, where they're located, there was kind of a upper limit that they would allow at that time for the number of people. And so the big question in our mind was, if we did a smaller one, how do you make that break even financially? But I think it's time for me to go back to him for this year and say, okay, what's the government saying now? Honestly, I would love to skip this year because, so many people who came from foreign countries couldn't attend. They've already told us that the Chinese contingent told us they couldn't come. The New Zealanders couldn't come. The Europeans aren't allowed into the country right now. So it feels like, a little risky. That's where we stand. If we do anything this year, it would be very ad hoc.
And Matt Siegel is associated with the mushroom farm, or where we had the first DWeb camp.
Right.
Okay, cool. Well, that's perfect. And what I have to share with you might open up some possibilities that could open up some alternatives. Has anyone?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Whoops. Google Home is talking to me. Has anyone ever proposed a venue like an observatory?
No. Well,
Okay.
When you say observatory, you mean like a thing with a big telescope in the middle?
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, may I screen share? And I've actually got a little presentation for you.
Wow, that's cool.
So hopefully you can see that.
I'm seeing a blank screen, but I do believe I'm seeing your screen. There we go. Yes.
Okay, you got it. So have you ever heard of Kitt Peak Observatory?
No.
Kitt Peak is just outside of Tucson, and it is, my understanding, it's like the largest in terms of number of telescopes observatory in the world. It is on a mountain. It's about an hour outside of Tucson. And frankly, I haven't been there. My wife and I were visiting a friend's ranch in southern Arizona, and we drove by it, and I was just kind of taken by it. I'd heard about it, but I'd never really investigated. So I started playing around with the idea of what would it be like if we had a DWeb Interplanetary Camp, and basically going on the theme that interplanetary or interstellar or intergalactic is really the ultimate decentralization. And so I started playing around with the idea and doing some research and investigating. But here's a couple things that sort of emerged out of this inquiry. One is, how would an interplanetary theme maybe possibly complement the DWeb camp and community? And, again, interplanetary is sort of the ultimate decentralization that's reflected in the interplanetary file system intention. And, we're seeing more and more exploration of space, SpaceX, Blue Origin, and so forth. And then as I investigated it it occurred to me that Kitt Peak could be a prime location for a DWeb camp, a DWeb Interplanetary Camp. And then I started investigating the opportunities and challenges of that. So I put this presentation together, and I'll just kind of step through it. And of course, you can have a copy of it and this recording and so forth. So this is the Wikipedia page on Kitt Peak, and it was built in 1958. It was active up until the COVID pandemic. It is closed now, and I don't know exactly when it will be reopened. And apparently part of the reopening is contingent upon the Tohono O'odham tribe or nation that owns the property. And then the observatory land, which is like 200 acres, is leased and currently operated by NORI Lab, which I did contact and had a brief chat with. So here's a view of the telescopes. There are 27 telescopes on 200 acres. There are dormitories here. It is a research facility, and it's normally active 7 days a week, outside of the COVID shutdown. Here's another view of it. And by the way, that prior image is part of a video, and there's a link to the video behind that image. And this is a more introductory video as well that talks about their sun telescope, basically, and their ability to capture eclipses and so forth. So those are two introductory videos. Here is a map of where it's located. Down here, you can see that it's about an hour and 6 minutes outside of, basically from the Tucson airport. And that's the pathway. This is Tucson proper, which is the home of the University of Arizona, which is one of the primary optical universities or optics universities, I believe, in the world. So this is a little closer view of Kitt Peak here. An interesting point is the Tohono O'odham Community College is just down the mountain from the observatory, and that might offer some interesting opportunities. So here's a little closer look, just focusing in on the 200 acres of the observatory itself. Here is a Google Earth image of it, and then I gathered some flight information with times and current prices from San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Seattle. Basically, it's about a 2-hour flight from San Francisco, hour and a half from LA, and 3 hours, a little over 3 hours from Seattle. And right now the prices are pretty reasonable. Here's our DWeb camp, little summary of that. Here are some people that might be interesting to invite if the DWeb camp were at, let's say, Kitt Peak or someplace comparable in Arizona. David Schweikert is our United States House of Representatives congressman from Arizona, and he is the co-chair of the Congressional Blockchain Caucus. I've been on multiple panels with him. Mark Kelly was just elected as a United States Senator, and he's a former astronaut. Kirsten Sinema is also a senator, our first female female senator from Arizona, and she is a Tucson native. Michael Crow is the president of Arizona State University, and they have a huge space exploration initiative. I think they designed one of the Mars landers. Doug Ducey, our governor of the state of Arizona. Mark Brnovich is the Attorney General, and he put a lot of his political capital behind creating something called the Arizona FinTech Sandbox, and is interested in basically pathways that are workable to sort of merge the legacy regulatory realm into the contemporary decentralized realm. Jeff Wenninger is the chairman of the Commerce Committee for the Arizona House of Representatives and has sponsored many innovative blockchain bills in the state of Arizona. You know, just out of long shot, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos also might be possibilities. Now, none of these people, you know, are critical to the event or anything else. I'm just pointing out some opportunities where there might be some synergy. Here's David Schweikert's biography, his co-chair position on the Congressional Blockchain Caucus. He's an avid hiker, him and his wife and his daughter, so this would appeal to him. This is Mark Kelly in his spacesuit, and Kirsten Sinema. And then I just started outlining some next steps. If there was some interest in this, whether that's 2021 or 2022, basically run it by stakeholders and set a date, tour the location. You know, it's tricky, Wendy, because you have at least two entities to deal with: the Tohono O'odham nation plus the entity, the federal entity that runs the observatory itself, create a budget, sponsors, all the you know, usual stuff. Some considerations is, would it be child friendly? What are the weather conditions, accommodations? Internet connectivity should be pretty good because one of the telescopes is remote controlled from various universities around the world. There is a helipad for helicopters to fly in and out of, bus. I don't know if alcohol is permitted there, security, cost of using the facilities, don't know any of that. And I don't know if there'd be permissions, permits, etc. And then in a setting like that, I think it would be important to ask the experts, you know, what would be a good date for, maybe there's a lunar eclipse, a solar eclipse, so forth, that could sway the particular choice of dates. Here are some of the academic institutions that, you know, might be collaborators in the event. I won't go into all of these at this point. There's other possible locations. So there's the Lowell Observatory in Flagstaff. I have never been to any of these, but Mount Lemmon, which is just outside of Tucson, is another. They have a sky center, and then the Wilson Observatory. These are only three, but there are obviously observatories all over the world, and I don't know how much activity they're getting anymore since we've got Hubble, and we're going to have the James Webb telescope that'll be launched hopefully in November of this year. But suffice it to say that this could be a footprint and a format that might be replicatable around the world, possibly simultaneously. And this is a shot of one of the facilities at Kitt Peak, like a classroom facility. They, like I said, they do have dorms. Here's a whole series of videos. I won't go into all of these, but these videos are pretty cool, where it gives you a real feel for the location and, you know, the possibilities and the opportunities. And then this is a shot basically from the bottom of the mountain. You can kind of get a feel for the scale and so forth. And then the rest is basically me. So I will, unless you have some questions about that slide presentation, Wendy, I'll stop screen sharing and then ask you if you got any questions.
Yeah. Thank you so much for putting that together. I guess one of my first questions is about the observatory. do they have a track record of putting big groups up, and under what circumstances? You know, do you
I
live in
don't know.
dorms? Do you have tents? So it's a big question as to whether they would be willing to work with a group like ours to accommodate. My second
Mhm.
question is, are you imagining this like as a project of the desert blockchain group, which would be ideal, and that we would just kind of play a supportive role?
Well, that's a possibility, but as I started looking at this, it seems like the DWeb community might be interested in, you know, putting this under the DWeb camp umbrella. So I don't know at this point. And you know, the first step is this step, to
Right.
have a chat with you, get your thoughts, and you know, if you're interested, you could socialize it among other key parts of the DWeb community. I'm not I don't view it as a desert blockchain construct or whatever. I'm just kind of collaborating with you on the possibilities. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know, we see it as a system of nodes, and you know, the goal ultimately is that different groups would take different things on. You know, maybe we would all agree, okay, this year it's going to be in Phoenix, and the desert blockchain folks would be responsible for working out logistics and location and et cetera. And maybe San Francisco would be willing to take on the programming and the, you know, et cetera, et cetera. In up till now, you know, San Francisco has kind of taken on everything, which is quite frankly, I was looking at some of the spreadsheets I did before, and it was a lot of work and risk, because I think we flowed about $500,000 through our hands just for the 500 people to come for that number of days. And, you know, a lot of stuff happened. We had to improve the internet infrastructure. We had to work with the site because many things weren't ready, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there was always a quite large potential that we would not break even. So Internet Archive had to be willing to take that risk too. And, you know, I was out there hustling for sponsorships to break even. And in the end, we did a little bit better than break even. You know, I think we were in the black by a few tens of thousands of dollars, but it was really, you know, touch and go right to the end. So there's that. And the real basics, the place one always has to start is location. What are they going to charge you? What do they allow? What kind of insurance do you need? You know, all of those kind of just basic things. Now, we worked with Brady and Ben of Custom Camps, and they bring a lot of oomph to the table. You know, they made it really a lot easier than it would have been otherwise for me. But I don't see us taking a lead role in this year, but we
Okay.
would certainly be supportive, I think, of, like, if you wanted to take, if Desert Blockchain wanted to take a lead role and take the next steps, we could see from San Francisco what we could do. I mean, absolutely, we would do marketing and, you know, try and popularize it and try and help bring things together. But you know,
Mhm.
it's a pretty big task. We had committees. We had to have stewards of each area. We had to get people committed beforehand that they would bring certain kind of projects. You know, there were always scholarships being asked for. As you recall, we worked hard to get that father and son there. Um, there was me out there hustling for sponsorships. There was working with the native tribe and getting the blessing. There was the architecture, the insurance, the food, the, you know, trying to make it affordable so people wouldn't have to pay full freight but would come early. You know, all of that was before the programming, right? And then there was the programming, the fun stuff that we did at night and the bands that we got to come. I mean, I don't know that we would need to do all of that, right? That it could be much more, here's a great location, come fill it with your own stuff.
Yeah, I don't know either. And it's something that let's say I'm open to considering taking it on. So I'm open to it. I realize what an enormous project this is. And I do have connections with some of the economic development associations in Arizona that might be interested in, participating in this and so forth. I just don't know. I just wanted to have this conversation with you so that you could, you haven't even heard of this. You didn't know what I was going to talk about today, and just sort of consider it. And then we can have another conversation and so forth as things progress.
It could be we take it to Juan and that he makes it more of an interplanetary file system camp, IPFS camp that grows larger. I mean, and underwrites some of it. They did a camp themselves in Spain, I think.
It was in Spain. I think it was outside of Barcelona, maybe.
Right.
Or Madrid. Yeah.
The other thing is, each node has its own flavor, right? Like you guys are very fintech and kind of economic development, which is great. Other groups like Berlin are much more, I'd say, policy oriented. They're about working with the government to create sandboxes so that blockchain things can blossom within the European structure. And we are much more, I would say, social values driven, right? We're trying to create a North Star of values so that we can all make sure that we're working toward the same things. And you might come at from the fintech side and we might come at it from the human justice side, but we're all on the same page. And so our things, as you noticed, DWeb Camp has a definite, kind of 60s idealistic vibe to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of our brand, I think.
So, yeah. No, it was awesome. I mean, all three events, 2016, 2018, 2019, they've all been just amazing. And I think have done a huge amount to bring the global community together. The collaboration, serendipitous, chats and running into people, just incredible. So
it's been really one of the honors of my life to be able to work on this, Jay. It's an unlikely outcome for me and my career, but I've learned so much and it's so much fun. And I love these people in our community so much, honestly. So
yeah,
I think this is a great idea. And Brewster would love it if we could do something this year. And if you could work out kind of time and budget and some of that stuff, I'm sure we would be happy to throw in. My parameter is that we're celebrating our 25th anniversary in October, and I'm in charge of that too. So normally when I did DWeb Camp, I did nothing but DWeb Camp from about January to July. That was my sole focus. And even if I did nothing from now until November, it would be a sprint, I think. It's not as much time as we would need in a iffy pandemic year even. But, if we lowered our expectations and made it much more kind of ad hoc, and our role was smaller and it could be later in the year because Tucson's temperature, I don't know, what is Tucson's temperature?
Well, it's about 5 to 10 degrees less than Phoenix, but you got to remember we're talking 7,000 feet. It snows up there. Oh, it's at the top of a mountain.
So what month would be ideal, do you think?
I don't know. I think one of the next steps is I would need to reach out to the agency in Tucson that runs it, the federal agency, and then also speak with the tribe and, talk to some of the experts about, okay, what might be the best time? What will we need to do? How many people could we have? Just start working on all the logistics. And there are other alternatives. I think that Kitt Peak is the best alternative from what I can determine, but it's not, Kitt Peak is not the only observatory in the world. And, as this came together, it occurred to me that this might be a footprint or a format that could happen all over the world at the same time, which might be kind of interesting. That's way too ambitious for the first cut, obviously, but
Well,
so
if you want to take some next steps, maybe a next step for our side would be to bring the custom camps people into it, because they can take care of a lot. You know, they handled all of registration and camp management. They can handle AV. They can handle quite a bit. But right, basically it comes down to getting a pencil out and saying, oh, this is how much they would charge.
mhm.
This is how much we could charge. Our break-even part, if we, generously think about how we pay custom camps and these other people, that break-even number is X. And, could we get that by Y date? Because that's when the optimal weather would be. I think
Mhm.
those are the basics. And I'm happy to share with you my copious spreadsheets on how it all worked last time.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this was just an introductory, run it up the flagpole conversation, and we can share this recording with other folks if you would like.
Yes, absolutely.
And
I would love a copy of the deck because I'd like to look a little bit more carefully at those videos and share it with Brewster.
yeah,
I mean, he's with you. He thinks we should do something 2021, and I would love that. I just don't see how I can fit it into my bandwidth this year, unless a whole big part of it is taken care of by others.
well, I would, I- I'm interested in making a commitment to this. If you are aligned, if the Internet Archive is aligned, if other key participants in the DWeb community like Protocol Labs is aligned, if we can get some alignment, some momentum for this, I will commit a sizable amount of energy and effort to move this forward. So yeah, that's all we need to do. If it doesn't work out this year, at least it's kind of brought up some possibilities that we can continue to talk about and collaborate on. I get that this is a huge project. So anyway,
less huge than the first time. Like the first time we had to build the website and the branding and everything. I think now DWeb has a good brand and people will flock to it if we do it right. Yeah.
well, and my sense, Wendy, is that the timing, the interest, the momentum is even more powerful than it's been in the past years because of everything that's going on in decentralization, the central bank digital currencies. I mean, there's a huge amount of interest in this whole area. So I would, first of all, I acknowledge you for being the leader of the last three. You've done an incredible job with it, and all three events have been sort of milestones for me in many respects. So yeah, that's all there is to do right now, is just to consider the proposal. It's just a proposal. It's just something that we can work with and get some other feedback. And
Thank you
then
for putting so much into it already. And if you'll send it to me, I will share it with, we have a team that does a weekly meeting, and I'll also share it with Brewster.
cool.
I would love it if by this decade we were, doing it in different locations in the node system. Like Berlin took it on 1 year, Phoenix another year, Shanghai perhaps in another year, San Francisco in a year, Toronto in a year. We just have a new Buenos Aires node starting up. You know, that it would be a global movable feast, if you will, and that no one group could probably do it all. But if that group that was hosting took care of the logistics, then San Francisco would say, okay, we'll do entertainment, and Phoenix would say, okay, we'll do registration. You know, it would be very much like Computer Chaos Camp, where they have these clubs, and the club says, I'll do electricity this year, I'll do security this year. And it's just this lovely kind of thing. Now, they only do it every 4 years, and there's probably a reason for that. Right?
Yes, we both know what that reason is. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
But it, you know, Chaos Communication Camp, 4,000 people getting together in the countryside, it definitely set a model that's extraordinary, and that I think, you know, DWeb and the whole community, the whole global initiative can move forward to another level. So
one of the reasons we picked the mushroom farm is they could accommodate 400, but they had room to accommodate 4,000 if we wanted to. So
yeah, and you know, if the mushroom farm's the next venue, that's fine. This is just a proposal, just something to kick around.
absolutely. Okay, well,
Okay.
check in with Kitt Observatory and let us know how that goes.
Okay, I'll send you the deck. I'll upload this to a private account in Google, unless I could encrypt it, send it to you via IPFS if you send me your public key, or, you know, whatever works. But maybe I'll just do it in a private repository in YouTube.
Probably best. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Thanks a
Wendy.
lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.